Hello everyone, welcome to Cut Stress Buzz Through Bids. This webinar is sponsored and presented by BuzzBID. At this time, I'd like to welcome our presenter, Leonard Buzz. Leonard started in Division 9 Commercial Interiors, owning Buzz and Associates for drywall and ceilings. Inventing quick bid and on-screen takeoff, he revolutionized estimating worldwide. Now with BuzzBID, he continues to leverage technology to streamline construction estimating, delivering innovative solutions for accuracy, speed, and success in the industry. So welcome, Leonard.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. This is Leonard Buzz. I'd like to tell you that I changed the name of my presentation here. It said stress-free estimating, but I don't really know that there is such a thing given the nature of it. So I'd like to get on, I guess I'll start with the bad news here, is companies do not get paid to estimate. So as estimators, we're seeing shorter bid times, much more complex drawing sets. General contractors are asking ever increasing ways to regroup, rebid, break out your pricing, and all this on top of trying to get competitive to win the bid. So from here, what I'd like to do is go ahead and show you what we've been doing to cut down on stress and estimating using computer vision. So I'm going to go ahead and hop over to BuzzBID here and show you this. So we're going to go through this, and if you're a PM or an estimator, this will make a lot of sense to you. Otherwise, it's going to be interesting. So BuzzBID is an application. It's desktop software. It can run single user or multi-user, or single user or multi-user in the cloud if you have cloud infrastructure. One of the best ways to show this to you is I'll just go ahead and start a bid, and I'm going to add a bid called MediClinic. And I'm going to add a set of plans to this bid here, and I'm going to go to my desktop. And I've got a small set of plans that was given to us from Austin. It's a little one-story office building. Whenever you load plans, we give you an option here. If the architect was nice enough to name the plan set, he did here, you can just load the plans. Otherwise, we want you to move this here and auto rename the pages. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and load the plan set, and here you can see all the plans are loaded. This, of course, is a setup screen for our project. Whenever I click apply now, right down here, it's going to add the project and hop over to the plans tab, ready to start the bid. So that is about all it takes to get a bid started and underway. In this case, all of your drawings are located here, and we do everything we can to make finding pages and moving around as easy as possible. So if I'm looking for the floor plan, the pages by just typing floor. So if I wanted to look at the exterior elevations, I can do that, or the partition schedule, I can do that. So when you get a set of plans and it's 300 pages and you just want to look at the exterior elevation to see what you're looking at, it's easy to get around. You, of course, can always select your pages from here. I'll go to the second floor plan. We also link all of the details for you automatically, regardless of which way you load the plans. So whenever you load your plans, the details are linked here. So if you look up a detail, I'll click on this detail, it'll take me over to the stairwell. If I don't see anything here that applies to me, I can mark that detail out of scope like this. I looked at it, doesn't apply to me. The other thing you can do with these is you can also take and open these details in another takeoff window. I'll click here and open a second takeoff window. Let me pull this one down so you can see. You have 6 takeoff windows, so if you have more than one monitor, you can estimate on more than one screen, and you can have multiple scales per page. So of course I have limited space here in the webinar, so I'll just show you this. I'll go ahead and close that additional window. Another thing that you can do with these details that's very interesting is you can actually scale a detail. Now that means that you can set a scale inside a detail so you can do takeoff in there. And I'm going to do that now. I've got an exterior wall section here. I'm going to go ahead and scale that detail, and it automatically takes me over to that page, and it wants me to draw a box around the detail. What it's done here is it automatically named the detail, and it knows the scale inside this detail. So being a drywall contractor, what I'd like to do is measure my deck high studs here and see basically what I'm looking at. 14 foot looks good there. I have another detail link here for this parapet. So if I wanted to build this parapet as an assembly in my bid, I can click here, scale that detail, and it hops me over here. Repeat the process, draw a box around it here. In the upper right-hand corner here, you'll notice it says add an assembly. And of course, our assembly list over on the left is blank right now. So I'm going to add my first assembly. The assembly detail is a little bit complex if you're not used to looking at this, but it's really not that difficult once you take a look at it. In the upper left-hand corner is what we're bidding, or actually the assembly we're building. This is the quantities we've taken off and pricing once we get underway. And down below is where material and labor parts and pieces go. We also have a copy of the detail link right here. So if we click on this, you can refer back to this later if you need to. In this case, many times if you have a legacy database, some of them we can actually build a default database for you by looking at legacy databases. In this case, I did. So my library, I have some pre-built conditions here, and I can go down and select something that I've built in the past. And that is, of course, sample data, but hypothetically, that might be the way I would build that parapet condition. I'm going to go ahead and click apply here, and you'll see my first item here on the takeoff list. So let's hop over to the partitions page, P-A-R-T, and this is where I'm going to have a lot of stuff I want to build. Now you can always add an assembly manually right here by add an assembly, but it's a little faster if you don't mind drawing a box around it, because when you draw the little box around it, of course, this being partition A, and I have an A1 through an A5, I can click the add assembly here, and this takes me to this. I'm going to tell it that it's interior walls, and this is an A1. We know it's 14 foot because I just measured it. So I'm going to stop right there and click apply, and there's my first partition under interior walls. I also need to go ahead and pick up the A2, 3, 4, 5 down here. So I'm going to go ahead and click here to add the A2. You can see it over here on the takeoff list. Here's the A3, 4, 5. So from here, another thing that I need to do is I really need to put all of this. I'm going to be bidding this somewhere on this floor plan, all of this. So I can grab these things quickly by just drawing a box around them. And you see the type B partition there. So I'll just go ahead and get this on the plan. I got to take it off anyway, so might as well go ahead and get it. So it looks like that. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and rename this a D3, and I'm going to name this one an E3, and I'm doing this because I'm going to do some takeoff in a moment, and I'd like to show you. So before I add anything else to my takeoff list, I'd like to point out that you have a library here, up here in the upper left-hand corner. And this is in case anytime you build anything, if you do Amazon Web Services or you have tenant fit up for an office building that you do over any repetitive work, you can go to your library and grab anything. Like I'm going to go ahead and grab an acoustical ceiling here. I'll get this one. And I'm going to get a drywall ceiling here, something just typical. And then I'm going to add those two items to my takeoff list like that. And here they are. So let's go over to the floor plan and take a look at computer vision takeoff. So I'm going to go to the floor plan. And the first thing we need to do is set the scale here. You always have to set the scale for the first page. And in this case right here, another thing that I'd like to show you, you can do with these details that we link automatically here. I'm going to, in this case, the architect tells you in the upper right hand corner, he says all wall types are A3 unless noted otherwise, but he doesn't notate very well what the other partitions are. So I have to go to this detail link here to figure out what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and scale that detail, draw a box around it. And from here, it already knows the scale, so I can do my takeoff right here. I'm going to go ahead and get the E4 taken off. I've got that should have been an E3, and I should have, the E4 was up above. Well, I got the E4, and then I'm going to go ahead and get the E3 here, like this. And then I've got a D3 that I need to do take off like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these like that. Now in this case, I'm over on the detail page here at a 1/4" scale. That's fine, but I need this takeoff. I'd like to have this over on my floor plan. So we have a little function here. It says transfer the takeoff. When I click this, it's going to take me back to the floor plan. And if you'll notice, the little blue dot is on my cursor. So when I move over where it goes, the computer vision can see where that belongs and automatically place it for me. So basically, whenever you're doing a takeoff, we wind up doing this as estimators. We go to a detail, we look it up. We're going to see what's going on in here. In this case, I've got an A4 partition that goes down here. And then I've got some B3 walls here. I'm just going to use the B wall here, like this. And then we repeat the process. Transfer the takeoff, we go back to here, like this. So basically, on these floor plans, you're going to chase down the details, find out what the architect intends here. Then everything else that is remaining on the page is going to be according to this detail. All wall types are A3, unless noted otherwise. So in this case, we're going to go back here, and this is where I need to take off the remaining walls that would be left. So I can go over here and grab this, and I can move over these partitions, and I can take them off with a single click like that. Now this is assuming I took off all the other walls, nothing's left but the A3. So I can come in here, I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. I can click a single wall, or I can double click to take off a group like that. So from here, another thing that I'd like to show you is I'd like to show you that you can search the plans for any text you're looking for. In this case, I'm going to click the text search tool and just type in wood. So when I type in wood, it tells me it found it somewhere in the plans. When I click here, it's going to shift from the takeoff over to the views tab here. And now it's searching the plans, and that's every page down here where it found the word wood. I don't care about wood on structural or plumbing or electrical. It doesn't apply to me. But over here on the second floor ceiling plan, I did find some wood, and that may be something I'm interested in bidding. You can search for an unlimited number of things like that, rigid insulation, anything like that. While we're over here on the ceiling plan, I'd like to go ahead and show you that if you do acoustical work, I'm going to go back to the takeoff, and I've got my Armstrong 2x2 standard grid ceiling here. I'm going to set the scale here to 1/8 of an inch, and with BuzzBID, you can take off acoustical ceilings like that. So that requires one click. So I can click this, and I can select rooms and take them off one by one like this. Or if you like, you can double click. I'm sorry. You can double click and take them off all at once like that. So in this case, I took off everything that matched that grid pattern. Now I can also search and find those rooms by if it had this marker L2, of course, is for the light fixtures, but if that was an ACT type 2, I have a computer vision tool that will find every room with ACT 2 and automatically take off those rooms. If you like to do things like back out your light fixtures, you can do that this way, and it looks like that. So that's the way acoustical works. Computer vision, we've been at it about a little over 8 years now, and it's very, very accurate, but we always need a human estimator to give a visual sweep and see if they verify and they agree with everything that they're seeing. Because in this case, the PDF fooled me, and you'll see this one little light fixture got away from me. Not bad, it's a good start, but humans are still needed. We have to verify what we're doing there. Okay, from there, I'd like to go ahead and take off these drywall ceilings. Another thing you can do is you can hide the takeoff that you've done so far. So now when I go to my drywall ceilings, I can do this, get those taken off like this. So you can turn the image back on, or you can take them off this way. Okay, I'm going to stop on this project for the moment, and I'm going to hop over to my next project here. And I've got a project over here where I've completed most of the takeoff. So given the short amount of time, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I'd like to show you that if you want to count things like corner trim. I want to count corners here, but I don't want to count corner trim on the exterior of the building. So in this case, I have the ability to turn off all of the takeoff. All right, I'll turn it on. I'll turn off the exterior partitions like this. And then I can click on my corner bead. If you see over here on the left, I have corner bead, my 10-foot corners. When I click on that, I have a computer vision tool that will go in here and count all of the corner trim for you. Also, if you like to do things like count door frames, I can click on the door frames here. I'll go here, click on this, and I'll go ahead and count the doors like that. Now, I personally like to count the door frames on the room finish schedule, or the door schedule, excuse me, instead of the floor plan. But if you like to count them on the floor plan, they look like this. Okay, I'm going to get a little bit more complicated on the computer vision takeoff. So we're going to switch projects again, and I'm going to go over to the police services building right here. And I'd like to show you a little bit more advanced computer functions here. So in this case, I have a situation where the architect was very generous with wall tags. Doesn't happen all the time, but in this case it was. So, and we have this little blue ribbon up here is your computer vision tools. I have one for wall tags. So if I click on this and move over the WP15, you can see that BuzzBID can see all of those WP15 partitions. From here, I can add an assembly, which I'll do now. And I'll go ahead and tell it that it's interior walls, and I'll set those at 12 foot tall, and I'll go ahead and click apply. And BuzzBID went out and found and counted 634 lineal foot of that partition like that. Now we always tell everybody wall tags are nice, but they're not perfect. And the reason is because the architect gave me a wall tag here and here, but he did not give me a wall tag here and here. So you have to do some touch up. Once again, the estimator has to do a little touch up to get those taken care of. So that's the way wall tags work. From here, I'd like to show you coming up in February, we have the next iteration of wall tags is going to look like this, where you will simply select the page if you want to, of course, and highlight it this way. And it will create all the assemblies and take off the partitions if you want to do that. I'm getting kind of mixed reviews on this, but one of the things we did was, assuming people use this tool, we wanted to make it such that I could turn off all of the partitions. I'll sort these by quantity here this way, and I'll start at the top and turn this one on. What we were looking for was the ability for you to, if you take off all the wall tags at once, I'd like for the estimator to be able to go through here and cycle through. As you can see, I push the down arrow key as I'm going through and verifying what I took off. Let's go ahead and take a look at another example of computer vision takeoff. I'm going to go down to the Shamrock Trading Corporation, and this is an acoustical project here. And this one's kind of a acoustical guy's dream come true because it's several floors, miles and miles of ACT3. It's all the same stuff. Hallways, offices, everything is ACT3 on this project. The interesting thing about this is I have created two assemblies over here, ACT3 for large areas and small areas, because although I could double click and take off the entire thing at once, I think that's not the best way to do it. It would probably be better if I took off the large areas like this. These are going to be very high production, very fast. Well, lucky me, it doesn't want to. There it is. Okay. So you can see the 16,677 square feet on the ACT3 for large areas. If I open up this assembly right here, you can see that the average room down here is almost 4,200 square feet down in the bottom. So I'm going to set grid production very fast in this area. As opposed to ACT3 small areas, I'm going to just go here and double click to take off the rest of it like that. There's all my small areas. And inside of this one, you can see that I'm going to set grid production much slower because the average room is more like under 200 square feet. So let's see where we go from here. Okay, one other example here is I'm going to go down to the student residence. So if you do multifamily, hospitals, hotels, any of those type of projects, this is an example of what computer vision can do with that. Whenever I go to the plans tab here, this is an example where the estimator took off the core, the exterior and the core, separate from the suites themselves. So you can see I have no takeoff here in my suites. If I look at the suites, they were taken off over here on the typical C suite enlarged detail plan over here. So this is where I took those off. The interesting thing that BuzzBID does with computer vision here is when I go back to that floor plan, I can also save that as a group where I just was a second ago, and it'll put it on the groups tab. So under the groups tab, you see I saved the C suite there. What the computer vision does is when I move over a B or an A suite, I have no reaction. But when I move over a C suite, the computer vision sees that it belongs there. So I can take off one of these one at a time in any rotational value like that, or I can double click here and take off the whole floor at once like that. So I'll zoom in here so you can get a little better look at that. The computer vision is highly accurate. It doesn't care whether it's mirrored, tilted in any way. I'm going to take another run at that here. I'm over here on the third floor, and I'm going to go ahead and take off the type C suites over here like this, double click that. I've got a type D suite that happens here, or E suite, I suppose, right here. And then I've got a D suite that happens over here. So in this case right here, I'm going to highlight everything and make sure that it's all located on the level 3. Another thing that we're doing with computer vision is we've been working on work in place tracking here. So this has some implications for the estimators that I find quite interesting. I guess I'll go ahead and I got a few more of these to do. I'm supposed to get the type A suites, and then I've got 2 type B suites. So I'll go pick those up like that. Okay. So in this case right here, the work in place tracking is part of the estimating package. It is not something that's sold separate. It's built into it. So the way this works is this, of course, is my takeoff page right here, and everything is located on level 3. When I click on the work in place tracking here, it turns this into a tracking, sort of a labor analysis function where you can look at things. In this case, I'm looking at the exterior framing versus, say, the interior framing like that. I'm going to go back to my exterior framing here, zoom in a little bit. And if the crane was free and the general said I got 2 hours to get my materials up there, the foreman in the field can highlight this. And when he moves over it, he can pull a material list for that right here. And this is everything he needs to swing up for the 3rd floor to get that built right here. The other thing that he can do is he can also pull a labor budget for this right here. So in this case, he can look at, he's got 16 crew days to do it. A crew size is 1 man. So if the schedule says I need to be off of that floor within a week, I can put 4 men there. And if we're hitting target production of 38 lineal foot per man day, we should be off in just over 4 days. So for me, this is kind of interesting because it gets down to things like a time study here. Let's go over to the interior framing here, and let's zoom in a little bit on one of these suites. Whenever I was running work in the field, what was most important to me is I wanted to know if I put 2 carpenters in this room right here, how long should they be in this room? So I can click the labor budget. It looks like I have 4 man days to frame that room. So in this case, I can say, well, I'm gonna have 2 people working in there, 2 carpenters, so I've got 2 days to frame that room. Also, if I needed the stocking report for that room, this is what I need to put in there. Of course, I'm not going to stock everything, but certainly your board would be helpful to stock in the rooms. So in this case, the foreman in the field, if they have the ability here, let's go back to the exterior framing, they have the ability to pull a labor budget, pull a material stocking report. They can also highlight this, and let's say that Monday, Tuesday, they get this much of the exterior framed. This floor is now 48% framed on the exterior. Let's say the next couple of days they get this done, and then it comes up on Friday, and they just got the top track up here. So we're going to say the top track is 60% of the framing effort right here. So we come in Monday morning, and the foreman's looking at this, and he goes, how much time do I have left to get this done? He can pull a labor budget here and says, okay, if I put 2 guys on it, I should be out of there in about half a day, 4.6 hours. It gives you a chance to get a spot budget there. So as they mark this, what my biggest hope is that when we get this coded to the iPad, we don't have that currently done. I'm hoping that I can get the men in the field to pull a stocking report, pull a spot labor budget to see how long they should be in a given stairwell or suite or on a floor, what size crew they should put on it. And if they could just tell us whenever they finish that work, then it will report those percentages back up to your estimating workstation. That gives you an idea of what's happening out there. We, of course, have the work in place results budget over here, which will show me the percentages framed floor by floor. And you have the opportunity to put hours on it off of your accounting system if you want to, and it will project your budget and tell you where you're going. So that is, there is, I guess I have just a few more minutes. I'm almost at 30 minutes. So I'll show you one other thing that's kind of interesting for me is we get into situations where the general contractor calls and says, look, we've decided inside of these suites here on this little guy right here, we got some flat strap. We're doing some backing here. We've decided that we're not going to do that backing. We're going to take that out of there. So we'd like to know how much of a credit we get back on this bid. This is an interesting exercise because in this situation, this could have happened across, in this case, I think it's 8 floors. I can right mouse click here on the backing and I can move that to an alternate or copy that to an alternate across the entire bid. All pages. And that happens very quickly. The other thing I can do is I could select, I can turn off all the takeoff, select only the backing on this page. If I select this backing here, I can right mouse click and move that to an alternate or copy it to an alternate. We do everything we can so that I'll go back to the beginning here. In this situation, I'll turn all of this on. If I'm looking for backing and I right mouse click the backing here and I tell it, let me go to the next page where we've got some, okay. If I right mouse click and select the takeoff, it will turn off all of the takeoff on that page except for that backing. And then I can review it and I can skip to the next page that has that and it stays selected for me like that. One other thing that I forgot to mention is that BuzzBID is multi-revision set capable. So as you load revision sets to your drawings, it stacks them up down here at the bottom. And you can click on any other revision set to overlay this drawing on top of the original drawing. BuzzBID handles multiple building and multiple revision sets. So if you take a project like I have one called Park Place here. If we look at the setup for Park Place, you can see I have a north building with no revision sets and a south building where the architect has issued a Rev 1 set. So I think that puts me at about 31 minutes, and I think I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions.
All right, Leonard. So the first question coming up is BuzzBID cloud-based?
BuzzBID is desktop software. It will run single user or multi-user. If you have cloud infrastructure, you can run it such as Azure and RDS. You can run it in the cloud, and it runs very nicely that way.
So following up to that, is there a size limit to database?
The single user database in BuzzBID uses an enterprise class database that can hold years worth of work. Of course, there is an archive feature, so as your database, you get 2 or 3 years, you may want to archive some of those historical bids off so that your database size stays reasonable. This is where you can find us. If you have information, there is pricing for BuzzBID on the website. And we have an option if you would like to try BuzzBID, just sort of kick the tires. There is an option for $250 to try the program with full training, full support, and full access to the estimators here to help you set up and get.
Okay. All right, thank you, Leonard. There's a couple more questions here coming in. Can you get supplier material quotes?
Yes, in BuzzBID, you can send supplier quotes to multiple suppliers and get competing quotes. Yes, we do that all the time. Yes. You're able. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I thought you were finished.
I was just going to say you're also able to share bids. There is secure in-app transmissions for supplier quotes back and forth to supply houses, and also sending bids from, say, one office to another.
Great. And can multiple estimators work out of one shared database?
Yes, when you have a SQL server, then you can have a common database and everybody works out of there.
And last question here, what trades does BuzzBID cover?
Well, we're squarely focused on the division 7 through 10, primarily drywall, acoustical plaster, eaves, painting, fireproofing, fire stopping, insulation, doors, frames, hardware. We're being used by a lot of companies that do all sorts of stuff. We have a few large hardware division 10 companies that use it for counting hardware sets on these monster high-rise condo projects. The takeoff engine is actually formatted for any scope of work, but BuzzBID itself is highly targeted towards subcontractors, and that is regardless if you're piecework or hourly, union or open shop, doesn't matter.
Well, great. Thank you so much. That concludes our Q&A portion. Thank you, Leonard. Thank you, BuzzBID, for sponsoring this webinar. And thank you, everyone, for attending. If you have any questions, please reach out or go to buzzbid.com for more information. We'll see you next time. Bye now.
Thank you.